So,
what do you want to know?
everything.
Oh gosh. They believe falsely that if they buy a Tesla, they will save the planet. We have to understand that the humankind is not like on the top of the pyramid of all the living creatures of the earth, but we are part of it. If it goes on a bigger scale, we will see that it will be like catastrophic for our existence.
Hello everybody, I'm Alexandra, your personal green advisor. Welcome to my channel, the place where together with my guests, environmentalists, eco-activists and leaders of the green projects, we will expand your knowledge about ecology and show the way how you can make a difference. Let's go! So with us today we have Csaba Mezei, who is the General Secretary of CEEweb for Biodiversity, which is an environmental NGO, environmental association, one of the biggest in Central and Eastern Europe. First of all, thank you very much that you agreed for this nice interview with us today.
My pleasure.
Can you maybe please tell a little bit about CEEweb in general and your main missions, what you are doing?
Yeah, it's an association, as you said. It's a regional umbrella organization dealing with biodiversity. And our mission, in one sentence, is the keeping or the conservation of the biodiversity through promotion of sustainable development and environmental, sustainability. So we are basically a promoter, a campaigning organization, but we also participate in several research. We do education and capacity building, communication campaigns, and many other things. As I said, we are an umbrella organization, so we are trying to cover up the whole Central Eastern European region, and we can do that via our members. We have more than 40 members all around the region, from Poland to the Baltic states, all NGOs or small groups who are working on the field, on bird protection or forestry, whatever, and these guys are do not have the capacity to see the whole picture, so that's why they had the idea 27 years ago to set up an organization which will represent them on a regional level. So we are following the policies in the EU. We try to modify it. That's why I mentioned the advocacy, which is a big challenge. And of course, we are informing those small groups about the policy changes, and we ask their opinions, we ask their input. So we try to function as a channel between the region and the needs of biodiversity and the nature, which can be implemented in a good case and reflected in the European policies.
So am I right to understand that you are like a middle chain between the European institutions and the small environmental NGOs or organizations who are trying to do something? Yeah,
that's right. We are a mediator or a channel or a negotiator for them. But of course, overall, we represent the interest of the biodiversity, which is directly the interest of the human mankind, because we cannot survive without the existence of biodiversity. So
my second question will be, because I know you do lots of different activities. You mentioned advocacy work, the working on the national and transnational projects. So you also do awareness raising. So which tools do you use in CEEweb, and how do you promote awareness raising, especially about environment and biodiversity importance?
Yeah, of course, the traditional channels like traditional media is always an important tool for us, like radios, newspapers.
Do you think newspapers are still working in Hungary?
Not really. So that's why we are basically turning to the modern communication channels, social media, and try to promote and put through our messages to those channels. And we want to, of course, reach out to different, huge variety of target groups. But for example, one of our biggest projects is about climate change and how to adapt to the effects of climate change in terms of biodiversity. And there the target group is the young people. So we have to learn, for example, how to work on TikTok, which is absolutely new to us because most of our office members are over 30. So for us it's not really natural to use TikTok, but we have to use it because we want to reach out to the younger generation, which are on
So you
TikTok.
have channel on TikTok.
Yes, we are trying our best to do it, but somehow
Maybe you will provide me with the link and I will put it in the description under this video.
It's a different universe.
As you can hear from the name of your organization, CEEweb for biodiversity. So logically, we think that the most important part of your work is protecting biodiversity. So maybe you can explain a little bit to our listeners, why is it so important to protect biodiversity? Why everybody is talking about it now? What is this biodiversity in general?
We have to understand that the humankind is not like on the top of the pyramid of all the living creatures of the earth, but we are part of it. And we have to kind of understand that without plants or animals or even the microorganisms, this whole system, this ecosystem cannot function. And if we take out a small part of it, some species extinct or some plants will disappear, then the whole system can collapse, and we are depending on them.
Now there is this opinion of many people, like, why I care if mosquitoes, for example, will disappear from this planet? It's gonna be better for me. They're not gonna bite me. They're not gonna distribute malaria. So actually I heard that there is this project now to produce genetically modified mosquitoes which will not produce any babies after these new mosquitoes. So slowly the population will decline and slowly disappear. What do you think about such sort of projects?
Well, the most important thing is that even the mosquitoes are an important part of the ecosystem. So the mosquitoes are eaten by frogs, for example, or bats, or different species. And if mosquitoes disappear, those animals will also disappear, which are also important, feed for predators or other animals higher on the level of that kind of food supply chain. So we have to think always in a kind of a holistic way and in an integrated way. So we cannot just take out the mosquitoes because it can collapse. It can cause the collapse of the whole system. And it's the same. I think the most obvious example are the bees. Like people never thought that bees are so important, but now they are disappearing. And if they disappear, the human kind will be disappear in like a year after or 2 years after, because the pollinators are so important in the ecosystem that without them we are just screwed. There are examples already, like in certain parts of China, the place where the pear is an important product of the agriculture, and because of the industrial processes and pollution, the bees disappear from that part, and the pear planters, they have to pollinate all the flowers themselves, which is a huge work, and they have to make such an effort to keep their business running. The prices go up, and sooner or later the whole industry will collapse, because this way it's simply not sustainable. And it's just about one type of fruit, but what if we talk about the whole food supply? Because most of the vegetables and all the things we eat, they need pollinators, and if it goes on a bigger scale, we will see that it will be like catastrophic for our existence.
So on which stage Hungary now is in protecting biodiversity? Hungary in particular, and Central and Eastern European region in general?
Well, actually, if I start from the European Union first, then there are relatively good biodiversity policies affecting forestry or agriculture on different fields, which are there. There is always a fight between the industry and the green NGOs to make it better or worse, and on the European level, the proportion of the industrial lobby and the green lobby is like 1 to 2,000. So one green lobbyist has 1,000 industrial lobbyists. But luckily, because of the European Green Deal and because of a lot of consciousness on the higher levels of the European Union, it's an important topic. So they really try to listen to the opinion of the green associations or NGOs or thinkers, think tanks. So I think it's a never-ending fight on the European level, and of course on the local level there are many problems. The approach to the genetically modified organizations are much different in Romania. They are supporting it, they are planting it fully. But in Hungary, it's banned. It's even in our constitution that Hungary cannot, plant any GMO.
But why
plants.
is it happening like this? There is different mentality of the people. I mean, the countries, after all, is so close to each other, had such a big past.
Yeah, it's I think mainly dependent on the politicians, decision makers. But in Hungary, it's mainly because of very active campaigning of some NGOs, for example, Greenpeace. And before I worked here, I was lucky enough to work for Greenpeace, and I was part of this anti-GMO campaign. And we really pushed, back then it was like beginning of the 2000 years, we really pushed the government and tried to convince them that it's worth to be GMO free on long term, because our agricultural products will be GMO free. That's a very strong selling point. So somehow we were lucky that they listened to us. But in Romania, for example, the biotechnological lobby was strong enough to convince that government to give policies that allows GMO. So now we will see on long term which was the better. On regionally, we have like same problems because the pollution doesn't stop at the border. So if we have a river somewhere polluted in the mountains, that comes to Hungary, or from Hungary it goes to Romania or to Serbia, Romania, and to the Black Sea. So in certain ways we have to think regionally as well. For example, if we see the Carpathians, Carpats, the mountains,
Part of Ukraine, yeah.
as well, yeah. These are, let's say, the last more or less untouched natural area of this region, and we really have to unite and cooperate with the countries to protect that.
There are some manufacturers who try to spread their hands to that regions as well.
Sure, absolutely.
Why
And
this region is that interesting for them?
because they are not there yet, so it's a business potential, it's a market potential. And actually this is one of our projects which is working on this Connect Green and Safe Green project, which is trying to kind of inform and teach the infrastructure developers how to develop infrastructure in that area without impacting the nature too much. For example, you must have seen some kind of green bridges around the motorways. So this is what I'm talking about. So we try to, ask them or convince them to build infrastructure that the habitats remain, the different moving routes of the animals would be untouched. These so-called ecological corridors would remain. So I think there is a possibility to develop while still protecting the nature. So that's what we're working on. And the region is also very important in that regard, because in these activities we have Ukraine, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania. So these 5 countries together with Austria, working together to protect the kind of and to introduce also policies on regional level.
So coming back to your experience, you mentioned that in 2001 you were one of the part of the creating team of the Greenpeace Hungary. So how was it? How do you feel when you were creating something new for the environment here in Hungary? What did you feel?
Well, that was a great experience and great period of my life. I was just out of the university. Originally, I graduated as a teacher, but I was always interested in environmental protection. And in 2000, you probably know that there was a huge cyanide pollution of the Tisa River. It was coming from Romania, Transylvania. There was a gold mine which had a huge retailing pond that crashed due to the rains, and a lot of cyanide was washed into the Samos River and then to the Tisa, and it completely killed out all the the flora and fauna of the river. And that was the point when the Greenpeace, which had the center of the region in Austria then, to create the Central Eastern European Greenpeace. And that was the point when I entered. I applied as an activist because I really wanted to do something. And then we started to build, the cooperations. There were like new offices in all the countries. One of them were in Hungary. And I started to work for them. And then later I became the executive director of the Hungarian organization. That was like a 8-9 years long history. I did many things, a lot of campaigns, like I mentioned, the GMO campaign. For example, we managed to stop a construction of a NATO radar station in the protected mountains of southern Hungary. We managed to stop the pollution of a river called Drava coming from Austria, and we had a lot of success there. I was lucky to be part of that and learned how to campaign and how to reach out to millions of people, how to fundraise, how to lobby, how to be successful in the environmental protection.
Lots of companies, for example, like Coca-Cola, putting on their labels that now they produce bottles with 10% less of plastic. So more and more big manufacturers realize that people start to be aware of the situation, they start to feel guilty, so they are trying to promote themselves for becoming more and more green. So it turns in certain fashion now. What is your opinion about that?
Well, the hope will never be lost, I guess, but it was 20 years ago when I started to work on the environmental protection. That back then, the state of the environment was very bad. Today, it's absolutely awful and almost hopeless.
Really?
So I could be actually frustrated because I didn't achieve anything, because it just got worse. Most of the species disappeared. There is the climate change and a lot of catastrophes and the soil degradation.
People watching us would start to depress now.
Yeah, if I look at it kind of a superficial way, I could be, like frustrated. But people working in the green area, they should never be frustrated, because they should just never give up and always keep fighting. And I think we managed to achieve many things. I was part of very successful campaigns, but we are too small, and the whole economical system of the earth, of the not the earth, because the earth doesn't have an economical system. The human civilization, it's not going well. It's not going to the right direction. This needs to be changed. So and I think now the climate change and this very, very concrete and very tough effects of the climate change will make even make us to realize that without a change of paradigm shift, we don't have a chance.
But don't you think that humanity is somehow already on the good path? Because I think like 30 years ago, or 20, or even 10 years ago, when I just started to study as an environmental scientist in Russia, it was still negotiable if climate change is actually happening, if it's not some switch of the weather, which already happened thousands of years ago. Sometimes it's hotter, sometimes it's colder, and now that's such a period that the earth is getting warmer and nothing bad about it. But now everybody knows that there is a climate change and it's not negotiable, and now everybody accepts it as a fact, and more people are aware about it. So maybe that's somehow we are going on the proper path, and slowly we are achieving the proper understanding and readiness to move forward.
Yeah, but we are still missing the action. But this will come. And actually, besides just the fact of the climate change, it's also important to realize that it's mainly due to the human activities, and the speed of the change is because of that. So it's not like a natural, maybe part of that is a natural, change of the climate, but the reason why it is so tough and so fast is that we are accelerating it with our activities, with the CO2 emissions and then everything we do. So yes, we are getting there to realize and to understand, and now we should really do something. So we are on the verge of the next step to do something, and it has to be on multi-level. Of course, on a level of the everyday people, the citizens, of course, they have to, stop, buying unnecessary things. They should select the ways. They should have travel less, or they shouldn't use a car that much, and so on and so on. We all know what we have to do, but there are other levels as well. For example, on governmental level, they should introduce really ambitious policies. How to do that on a systematic level. But the biggest problem, is the economy, and they really have to change, because now the economy is based on the idea of unlimited growth on a limited planet, on a planet with limited resources. It's a contradiction. It's not sustainable, and what is not sustainable will stop sooner or later, rather sooner.
You mentioned that on different levels we should have a change, like both on the personal level and the national, on the multinational level. So there are always these arguments going on through different societies. Should the action happen from the top to the bottom, or from the bottom to the top?
Both.
Both.
Yes.
So you personally, apart from working in this green non-profit sector, what personally you do to save us from the climate change?
Well, of course, I do everything which I can on a personal level. So
For example?
I reduce my mobility. I don't use a car that much. I try to use public transport or bicycle. I, of course, do waste selection. I have a small yard at home, so I grow vegetable, and I have a daughter, so I teach her about sustainability. But I think which is more effective is that I try to convince other people to do the same. And then I try to convince other people to do the same. So if we do this, if I do this kind of multiplying activity, I think that's even better than if I alone, just in my household, do something. And so I think even a person, like an average citizen who I am, can do many things, not only on a personal level, but on other levels. So let's organize, let's make a group, discuss what you can do in your neighborhood. We can go, clean up. You can go to the local municipality to ask them to put, like selective waste bins, or improve public transport in the area. But of course, you can also go on a higher level as a citizen. So you can, if it works, of course, you can vote on parties which have a better environmental program, or you can support NGOs with the donation. So even us, we can act on different levels. So yeah, that's what I try to do.
So my next question then will come up automatically. What are the main challenges in fighting this continuous fight against climate change and against the manufacturers, let's say? Because as I always say, it's very important to keep the balance between us going very sustainable and us still living our lifestyle. Because now there are lots of extremists, people who say, for example, we should totally reduce our electricity consumption, we should all start growing our own food, we should stop using cars at all, and these sort of things. It's very difficult, to keep the balance of not going back to the Stone Age, which was very sustainable, and still performing our daily activities, more or less, and at the same time trying to minimize our footprint. So what were the main challenges in this?
Yeah, if you live in a high-rise block in the middle of the city, you cannot grow your own food.
Obviously.
Even I'm very lucky that I have a small garden. I can grow, a couple of kilograms of tomato or whatever every year, but it is still not enough to keep me alive. So that doesn't work, and I usually don't go for very radical solutions. I think we have to go step by step and to plan and to always have a kind of an integrated approach, and the better distribution of the wealth of the goods in the whole planet would actually help a lot. And you know, the problem is that the only, you know, like 5% of the human population produces the I don't know, like 2/3 of the pollutions in the world. So that's what I mean, like distribution, and you know, the impact of like of a person living in India is such a small one, and then in America that's such a big one, and you know, they really have to change the attitudes. And what is the biggest challenge, just to answer your question, is that there are different interests and absolutely different mindsets. So we people, we are like citizens, we want to have a clean environment, we want to have a secure, sustainable future that we will inherit to our children and grandchildren. But you know, on the other side, the industry, the companies, you know, the whole economy, they only want profit and to, you know, like exponentially grow profit, and this doesn't work. And you know, this whole idea can cause the destruction of the whole, not the planet, because the planet is fine, you know, the human population, the civilization, because for the earth, for the planet, this human activity is just you know, like a small part in the history. You know, if we now collapse, in 10,000 years there will be no even, you know, remainder of the human civilization. There will be just forests. So the earth doesn't care about it. If we want to survive as humans, as people, we really have to change, and we have to change this economical system. I don't know how. It's a very difficult question, but there are already think tanks like the degrowth movement, or you know, it's possible to change it into a sustainable way, but we are not there
So
yet.
basically, it's not us trying to save the planet, but us trying to save the humanity.
Yes, and then our civilization.
And our civilization.
Yeah.
The activities are unlimited and opportunities are unlimited, basically. Yes. So subscribe, put a like on this video if you like it, and write in the comments what do you think you can personally do about saving us as a humanity on this planet and our civilization.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.